It really should come as no surprise at this point, but the Cardinals continue to be that team that never sees any deficit as insurmountable, as they showed on Saturday, winning Game 2 of the series in Cleveland. We'll talk about it coming up on B-Schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome into this edition of B-Schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. How about them Cardinals? I mean, just another impressive performance on Saturday afternoon after you get the great pitching from Sonny Gray on Friday. Didn't get that from Mikolas in Saturday's game, but you got that relentless attack from the Cardinal offense to come back from a 6-1 deficit and win the game 9-6 to claim the series over the Guardians. And now the Cardinals will go for the sweep. 11 a.m., I believe, is the first pitch, 11:05. On Sunday morning. So this may be a podcast that I'm doing to myself and a couple of close friends, because I understand that most people might like to take some time to listen the next day, and, well, there will already have been another game beginning before noon. But I want to take some time here tonight to talk about my thoughts from Saturday, and we will still go down on the farm, which always gives you a reason to keep tuning in to see the breakdown from the Cardinal minor league affiliates. But how about that offense? And it had been something we haven't seen with a ton of consistency. Obviously, the latter two games of the Chicago Cubs series, the Cardinals were shut out. And so you're waiting to see, well, what's the response going to be on this road trip? Well, how about that 5-0 win on Friday, followed up by the Cardinals putting up 9 in this one against the Guardians? And they got things going with a Brendan Donovan home run to begin the game in the first inning. That was cool. But a 6-run fourth inning by Mikolas. It always does seem to be that one inning. And again, you can say, well, there's some soft contact, some hard contact too. A couple of homers that he gave up. 4 innings for Mikolas, gave up 6 runs. They were all earned. And after that fourth inning, he did not record another out, as we saw Matt Swanson and the parade of relievers beginning to come into the game at that point. But I think a lot of credit goes to the Cardinal offense for not only scoring the 9 runs, which is, good enough on its own to see, but the fact that they do it and begin carving back into this game, kind of chipping away at that deficit right away with a couple of runs in the top of the 5th inning, immediately after the 6th spot by the Guardians. That's what's special about the 2025 Cardinals, if you ask me. Because a lot of times you give up a 6th spot, whether it's in the 4th inning, the 1st inning, it doesn't really matter where it comes. That can be a very deflating thing for a ball club, especially having played the majority. I mean, the first 3.5 innings of that game were played with a 1-0 Cardinals lead. And so for Cleveland to jump all over Mikolas there in the bottom of the 4th inning, we can talk about Miles. Obviously, there are people who aren't totally thrilled with him at this point in time because the ERA balloons back up to 4.76. We know the drill at this point. We've talked about it. He's your number 5 starter, and a lot of times he's been giving you requisite number 5 starter type numbers, just keep you in the game. I think I said on STL Sports Central, the pregame show on Saturday morning with Ethan Hannaford and myself, I said 5 innings, 2 runs, that would be more than enough for Miles Mikolas. And then maybe you find a way to win this game 5-3, something like that, because you just don't necessarily anticipate Miles getting super deep, but you're hoping he can just continue what has largely been his trend this year, which is more often than not holding the opponent to 3 runs or fewer, about 5 innings, maybe 6. And with the bullpen having gotten the rest it needed on Friday night with Sonny Gray's complete game, masterful performance, by the way, I thought, maybe just 5 innings would be enough for Miles. Well, he didn't even get that. And not only did he not hold them to 3, he doubled that number and gave up 6. It all happened in 1 inning. It is what it is for Miles Mikolas in 2025. You hope that he can find a little bit more of the good starts than the bad ones moving forward the rest of the way. And I don't think he is, nor is really anybody at this point, close to losing their spot in the Cardinal rotation. I just think it's sort of what it is. You've got a group of starters. Mikolas is a 5. Palante is kind of pitching more like a 5, but I think he's a 4. And Eric Fetty is a 3 who's maybe pitching more like a 4 or a 5. And then you've got Liberatore and you've got Sonny Gray. That's your rotation. We know McGreevy, he's going to keep getting his opportunities. But you've basically got Sonny Gray, who is an ace. Check out my latest for STLSportsCentral.com, going over some of the numbers that compare what Sonny Gray has been relative to his peers in Major League Baseball the last 3 seasons, basically. He's one of the best starters in baseball when you look at some of the numbers and the way it stacks up, Fangraphs WAR, etc. So go check that out, STLSportsCentral.com, my latest article over there. But that's your ace. And then Liberatore, a lot of credit to Matthew Liberatore for the season that he has had. Nobody saw that coming. And even if he ends up with like 3.9, 4.0 ERA, he's been a solid number 3 at worst. I think he's got the type of stuff to be a frontline starter, and we have seen more than a glimpse of that this year from Libby, and just hoping to, continue to see him stay healthy, for one, I think is the biggest thing. And that could allow him to unlock more of what he's been able to do when he's at his best, which the last couple of outings he's been pretty good. He was very good against the Cubs, and now we're going to get an opportunity to see what Libby looks like against the Guardians, as he will take the ball for the Cardinals on Sunday morning in what could be a series sweep opportunity. Now, of course, we'll be taking on Logan Allen on the other side. Another left-hander. See what that ends up doing for the Cardinal lineup and whether they can have better luck against this left-hander, Logan Allen, than they have had, at least in a couple of the recent outings against those Cub left-handers who did so well earlier this week. But I look at this Cardinal rotation, and it's largely done its job overall. I guess if I were to look now, and I guess I should, since I'm talking about it, it's probably the case that their starting pitching ERA, if I had to guess, ranks about, I'm going to guess 18th in baseball is going to be my official guess before looking it up and giving you the answer. Because my premise has been middle of the pack in terms of a starting rotation. And for a while, I feel like the Cardinals were that. They were around 15th or so, 14th or so in ERA. Now they're 16th. So I undersold them by a bit. But the White Sox are 18th, and the White Sox rotation ERA is 4.13. The Cardinals is 4.10. So it is razor-thin margins there, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, all sitting between 4.10 and 4.15. So kind of the middle of the pack, but also slightly to the bottom half of the league in starting pitching ERA, which is about what I expected that I would see. I wasn't too far off. When you're getting what you're getting from Sonny Gray and another start like the one that he had, like the one that he had on Friday, just another really good start. I'm not asking for another complete game shutout, one-hitter Maddox. That would be pretty crazy. But if he has another good start, I think we should start to kind of beat the drum a little bit for his All-Star campaign, because there is still time. And his ERA is 3.36. He's got a good bit more strikeouts than innings pitched. And if he has another good start, lowers that ERA to around 3, I think that would be appropriate to at least put some of the good juju out there for Sonny Gray, who has put together a pretty good season. I know it's not been perfect, but he's an ace. Liberatore, we've talked about him, 3.9 ERA, a very solid number 3. I think more like a number 2, and certainly on this Cardinals team a number 2. But then the rest of your rotation is kind of some guys who you may not say they're number 5s. Maybe you'd say they're not even all worthy of being in a rotation, but they're performing like back-end starters, which means more often than not, they're still giving you decent quality. But man, when they blow up, it can be pretty damaging. And it happens with some level of frequency for guys like Fetty, guys like Mikolas and Palante. He's on the come a little bit more recently, but it's happened to him too. Can't hide from that. But my point with this is the fact that the Cardinals can take that Mikolas start and turn it into a win, and a win that secures a series win, is remarkably impressive to me. The way that they were able to stick with it and, again, answer right back. You give up 6, that can be a very daunting task to turn around and down 6-1 feel like you're still in the ballgame. But the Cardinals go to work. 5th inning, Brendan Donovan, he's been a real nice leadoff option for this team. Good to see Mason Wynn getting in on the action as well. Doubles to make it 2nd and 3rd for Burleson, who then drives them both in with a base hit. And that was the way the Cardinals picked up their runs in the fifth, and then they didn't stop there. That's sort of like the proof of concept inning. We've seen the Cardinals do this before, where they just need a little proof of concept when they're down early in a game that they're going to punch back for a couple just to say, all right, stick with it. A lot of innings to go. And that was kind of the moment. And it happened again. I'm trying to think back. It might have been one of the Cubs games, might have been another one over the previous weekend against the Reds, perhaps. I think it might have been that. I'm not going to look it up because I don't want to go too long tonight with it being a short turnaround for Sunday's game. But there was a game where it was kind of like that, where Mason Wynn was involved with a home run. And it was in the inning after the other team had taken the lead. And this happens again. Mason Wynn involved here with the double that allows Alec Burleson to drive in a couple of runs. That's kind of your proof of concept. And then you go to work in the sixth. Newpar, Arenado, Gorman, Pozo. 4 singles in a row before Victor Scott II, who I put him on the thumbnail image for the video because I think he deserves it, deserves to be highlighted for his 2-for-4 day and the couple of RBIs that he put together there. Victor Scott II, double. I believe he ended up at third base, but regardless. No, it was second and third. I correct myself on the fly. 9th double of the season. Good to see for Vic. Gets the OPS back above 650. This was a game where the lineup was just going after it. Everybody who started the game for the Cardinals ended the game with at least one hit. Multi-hit games from Vic, from Gorman, who was 2 for 5 in the game, run scored in an RBI. You had a couple of guys with multi-hit games. Mason Wynn was 3 for 5, and Wilson Contreras ends up with a multi-hit game as well, homering to add a little bit of juice to that lead to take it from 8-6 to 9-6 in the ninth inning. But it was a 5-run sixth inning where the Cardinals just put together a hit parade. Started against the starter Slade Ciccone, which is a very cool-sounding name. Had a very good start brewing for the Guardians until he got into trouble there in the fifth inning. But the Cardinals do what they do. They wear down starters. They're not out of it. They're not resigned to an opposing starter that gives up just 1 run through 4 innings. That always going to have a great outing against us and go 7. It's not always the case. And they were able to get to him. And then Matt Festa was the reliever that came in, and he was victimized. Recorded only 1 out and was charged with 4 hits, 4 runs, all earned. The Cardinals doing a lot of damage off of him as well. So really some good stuff to see from this offense. You can't beat having 4 different guys with multi-hit games, 3 walks, 14 hits in the contest to put together 9 runs. They were pretty solid with runners in scoring position, although pretty much all of it coming in that 5th and then 6th inning. Burleson had the hit in the 5th with Risp, and then the 6th inning there were several. 4 for 11 with Risp in the game. And there was a funny stolen base. Wilson Contreras just took it off the pitcher and stole third, but then was out at the plate because of the ground ball Arenado hit. And Arenado, the one thing I'll say from a negative is, like, get on his horse a little bit more there if you're Nolan, because he was not hustling much. That should not have had any chance to have been a double play. It was originally ruled a double play. Cardinals challenged. It was overturned. Arenado was safe at first, but don't let it be that close, would be my advice for future reference. But just another really good sort of game. I don't really think a ton of the Cleveland Guardians as a team, and they're kind of like the Brewers of the AL Central, where you can count them out, and then every year they seem to be right there in the mix at the end. This year they're struggling a little bit. They have now hit the halfway point. The Cardinals have played 4 more games than Cleveland has played, but the Guardians are 40-41, so they're on pace to only win 80 games. And they did get Jose Ramirez back in the lineup today. He is the heart and soul of that lineup. But, man, they just don't have any hitters outside of really him, Kyle Manzardo, who's a good first base / DH type, and Stephen Kwan, their leadoff batter. That's the trio, and beyond that, man, they are brutal. When you look at some of the stats and the OPSs and things for this lineup, it has just been an absolute, nightmare for this team. And I don't think their pitching is quite good enough to make up for that. So they're in a pretty soft AL Central, other than the Detroit Tigers, who are running away with that division. But they may not even have a 500 season in them at this rate. Cardinals have got to jump on it on Sunday. They have got to find a way to sweep this series. Now that you're in this spot, like, I wouldn't have necessarily said that coming in. I'd say anytime, you enter a series, you can win a series. That's great. You always look to win every series you're in. And if you do, at the end of the day, more often than not, accomplish that goal, you're gonna be just fine when it comes to the end of the season and the standings. But you got the first two, and I think the Cardinals have the benefit of the pitching matchup on Sunday. Libby against Logan Allen. Logan Allen will be starting on my fantasy team, by the way. I think in a matchup where it's kind of close going into Sunday in a points league, and I could really use him to do well. But do I have Libby on that team too? Trying to remember. Either way, the only concern that you would really have is that Liberatore, or not with Liberatore, but Logan Allen being a left-hander kind of makes you hold your breath just a little bit. No, I do not have Libby on that team. So it's just going to be Logan Allen. I'll put him in there, Cardinals fans, because, if I lose my fantasy matchup, it could be because of him, or it could be because of Walker Buehler. I'm honestly considering sitting Walker Buehler on my bench because he has been unbelievably bad. I'll finish the podcast and I'll figure that out. Can the Cardinals solve the lefty Logan Allen? I want your predictions in the comments below, because if you look back to Wednesday and Thursday of this past week against the Cubs, the lefties Matthew Boyd and Shota Imanaga had their way with this Cardinal lineup. I think Nootbaar will hopefully be in there. I think Burleson, another lefty that, I think can handle himself against lefties. Don't mess around with the Garrett Hampson thing. It's not necessary. That would be the one thing that I would be disappointed to see from Ollie Marmol. I would even consider starting Vic. I would maybe just start my same lineup, be honest with you, because what you had worked really well, and I think it, other than probably Pajes will be behind the plate instead of Pozo. Pozo was 1 for 4 in this one. I think you probably end up starting the same lineup. I would not mess with worrying about getting Hampson in there. Maybe Sajaci against the lefty is probably somebody who should start. Gorman started at third base in Nato DH, so that's probably not something that will be replicated tomorrow on Sunday. Arnado will be the third baseman. Maybe Sajaci slots in for somebody, but Gorman going 2 for 5, you want to keep him in there. Burleson had the big swing. He was only 1 for 5, but had a couple of RBIs. He's been playing a lot lately, though. I mean, it might be a day where Burley does sit just for rest purposes. And I also wouldn't be surprised to see if they would rather sit Nootbaar, because he's coming off of a spell where he was dealing with that intercostal strain, or not strain necessarily, but discomfort, and got the shot, 48 hours, no activity. He's been able to play in this series. And by the way, now that I'm thinking about it, he had kind of a check swing, kind of a tied him up swing in the game Saturday that did not look good. Ollie and the trainer came out to check. He stayed in the game, but they might take it extra precautionary with him and just have him not in the lineup Sunday with a quick turnaround, 11 a.m. So that's my speculation on the lineup. We shall see. Let me know in the comments what you think we will see from the lineup. What do you want to see from the lineup against the lefty Logan Allen Sunday, and whether or not you think the Cardinals can get this sweep. We'll be talking about it on B-Schaeff Daily later on Sunday, win, lose, or draw. So keep it locked here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and you can follow B-Schaeff Daily as a podcast on Spotify as well if you're interested in listening on that platform. But before we get out of here, I do want to go down on the farm because we got to update you on the Jordan Walker rehab assignment as he is back in action after the appendicitis situation. So why don't we take a moment and do that now as we go down on the farm. It's time to go down on the farm. Brought to you by Hastings Layers Premium Eggs.
You'll be happier than a jackass eating thistle.
Huh? So we will go ahead and start with Memphis as we break down the minor leagues for Saturday, as the Redbirds got an 11-3 win over the Durham Bulls. And as I mentioned, we did see Jordan Walker in the lineup there as the DH on Saturday. I assume he'll probably play in the field Sunday and then should be ready to rejoin the Cardinals. I don't think it should be that long of a rehab, although I guess it hasn't been 10 days yet, so he'll probably have to wait. Correct myself on that. It was retroactive to the 23rd of June, so it'll be, I guess he'll have to wait for that 4th of July series. But this will just give him some time to get his swing ready and be kind of more than ready by the time he gets back. Because it was a situation where he didn't get the appendix taken out. He had, it didn't rupture, it didn't burst, but there was inflammation, I suppose, and they used medication. I'm not 100% on that. I've always thought that, and I'm not a doctor, but I've always thought that if you have any sort of issue with the appendix, you probably want to just get it removed since you don't need it, and what if it causes future trouble, and you kind of go through it again. But also, any surgery that you don't need, you probably don't want to have. So I get that too. Anyway, he was 1 for 4 with a couple of RBIs. I believe he drove in Michael Ciani, and that's something that in an alternate universe, that could have been happening in St. Louis at some point, but has not been the case yet this year. Ciani was 0 for 3, but scored 3 runs because he walked a couple of times, and I don't know if he reached on an error or what happened. Durham made a couple of errors. That's probably what it was. He's OPSing 708 down there. Walker gets his 1 for 4 day with a couple of RBIs. Good to see from him. But the offensive standout of this game was neither of those gentlemen, and it was not necessarily Cesar Prieto either, who was 2 for 5. He was very good. Mike Antico was very good in this game with 2 home runs. 3 RBIs, scored 3 runs. He is OPSing 821. But the offensive standout that I wanted to talk about, because I think he is maybe more viable as a potential big league candidate. I don't know that I would say sooner rather than later, but certainly I can't rule it out. Nathan Church, man, this guy is en fuego. 2 for 4. He also hits 2 home runs in the game. He reached base a 3rd time via walk. 5 RBIs. He's hitting .377 with an 1104 OPS in Memphis. And he's been up for, several weeks now. This is getting to be a sample size that's not quite as small as it once was for Nathan Church when you're looking at the really solid numbers that he is putting together. Another UC Irvine guy. I believe Andre Palante was an anteater as well. Yes, he was. And nevertheless, let's talk Nathan Church. He's up to about 88 plate appearances or so. That was his 19th game played. He had a 943 OPS in Double-A. Springfield called him up, 24-year-old outfielder. Hits left, bats left, so that's part of this. But I don't know if the Cardinals necessarily, need all the right-handers on their bench that they have. It would be okay to add a 6th lefty to the roster, and then you got 7 righties, I think. It might be a little bit offhanded, but at the same time, you're facing more right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching, so I would not mind it at all if Nathan Church would get a call. And he wasn't really a guy coming into the year that I think was considered as like a huge prospect. He's 11th round pick in 2022. Had spent 2024 at Double-A, had a 705 OPS. Was very pedestrian. Went to the Fall League, though. Showed well there. 815 OPS in the Arizona Fall League last year. And then I guess had a little bit of a spell at Palm Beach this year, probably for injury rehab. But he has just had incredible numbers. And overall is a OPS around 950 between the 3 levels. That's 230 plate appearances worth. And he's now up to 10 home runs on the season. He's also a guy that can run a little bit, too. Has some stolen bases, 11 for 14 on stolen base attempts. So, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is a flash in the pan or what. He turns 35. No, he doesn't. He turns 25 in a couple of weeks. Excuse me. That would be notable. 35-year-old prospect. He turns 25 in a couple of weeks. So, he's not this guy that I think you're going, you got to play him every day because he's a young rising prospect who needs the games. I think you might just say, if he's a future kind of bench bat, can play all 3 outfield spots type, I would like to see the Cardinals give him a look. And I don't know, if they don't want to, I would see them floating him in a trade just because, if they feel like they've got the left-handed hitting outfielders that they want, then is there not a spot for him down the road? But I would give him a call up because you just never know what's going to happen. When you think about a guy like Lars Nootbaar, is he going to be around forever with this team, or are they going to eventually lose him to free agency? I know we're still a couple of years away from that. Things like that I think about. It's like you might as well not kind of Randy Arozarena yourself by not giving a guy a chance, trade him away because another team is enticed by him, but you never really found out what he was made of at the big league level. Very exciting what we're seeing from Nathan Church. I just wanted to talk about him a little bit tonight. So that is what I was doing right there. Michael Ciani also stole a couple of bases in the game. But I wanted to highlight as well the pitching. Tekoa Roby had a rough one in Memphis, I believe his last time out. This one, much better. I think he was rough the first couple, and now we're seeing consecutive pretty good starts from Roby with Memphis, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, his first 2 with Memphis, he gave up 6 earned runs in both of them, and then he went 6 innings, no runs, and then the game today, 5 innings, 1 run. So already Tekoa Roby dialing it up in Memphis, which is really cool to see his progression. And then the Springfield Cardinals 12-6 winners over the Wind Surge as they continue that series. J.J. Weatherholt back in the lineup, just 1 for 5, but the one was a good one. His 5th home run of the season, scored a couple of runs in the game and drove in 2. J.J. hitting .307 with an .888 OPS, so there's a homer for him. Jeremy Rivas, 2 for 5. The Springfield lineup definitely did some work, had 3 home runs in the game, 4. Chase Davis had 1 of them. He was 2 for 3 in the game, walked twice, so on base 4 times, and that'll help his OPS. It's only .660, so Chase Davis still a ways to go as he kind of gets himself back where he wants to be after kind of a recent slump there in Springfield. Joshua Baez, he was 0 for in the game, but did have a couple of RBIs and reached via walk, scored a run, OPSing .976. He's come back down to earth, but I like seeing an 0 for 4 from Joshua Baez with no strikeouts. You know, I think that's the main thing is he's just out there still competing and doing some good things even on a day where he doesn't get a base hit, to his credit. So that was a nice thing to see there, and just the offense up and down the lineup looking pretty good there for the AA squad. Pitching-wise, Max Radjic, 4 2/3, gave up 4 runs. Only 3 of them were earned, but gets kind of hampered by the 4 walks that he gave up in that game. But good stuff. Offensive eruptions all throughout the system as the Cardinals at the big league level win at 9-6, and then 2 double-digit scoring outputs for AAA and AA respectively, as it's a good day for the Cardinal organization. That, though, is going to do it for this edition of the show. Going to get it out here as quick as I can. Appreciate you guys for listening and for sticking with me and for all the support. We'll talk to you next time on b-schaeff Daily. Peace.